Alright boys, here we go. It's been a minute since I've done one of these, so I'm going to try and stay on topic. This is the Buffalo Harescramble in Grover, South Carolina with NCHSA. Round 8, I think? I don't know, I haven't done all of them. I've just been doing hit or miss ones when I'm not trying to ride hard enduros. I got to keep my go fast up, and I'm losing a little bit of it because I haven't been doing enough of these. I ended up in 5th in 30B, which is still respectable out of like 15, I think is what it was. I can kind of consistently do that, so I've been questioning moving up to 30A, but I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of commitment to racing yet, because I think if I move up to A, I'm going to have to focus on one thing. I'm not going to be able to do 5 things at once. So that was the start, and then this is back at scoring. That hill was a lot of fun. I like that they had this like short wall thing you had to go up. They talk about hard enduro and try to go up the hardest thing you can. So it was kind of fun to have some of that stuff thrown in here. This course, I'd never been here before. It was a lot of fun. It was a little bit of wide open, and then there was a motocross track and a kudzu kind of flat track field section. And I suck at that. I suck at kudzu flat track. I don't know why. I just don't know how to do it. Just don't do it well. So it's something I need to practice, but I probably won't because I just don't have anywhere to do it. I just have to get better at it slowly after I get used to this. The layout of this race was kind of like, I don't know, it wasn't like a full sprint, but it had the mixture of it where you had tight, fast woods, or tight flowing woods, and then you had the open field section and motocross section. I did that in that turn almost every lap, and I'm not sure why. I just went wide, just couldn't see the inside line. This upper section past scoring was fun. It gave you a little bit of flow to get ready for the woods that were coming up. Overall, the track conditions were really good. They started off really slick. We had a little bit of rain the week beforehand, and you can see they never got to like hero dirt conditions, but it got tacky, and all that slick red clay on the top kind of got worked into really good ruts, which worked in my favor because I ended up losing rear brakes midway through second lap, so I ended up running 3.5 laps, almost 4 laps with just my front brake in sloppy mud conditions or slick mud conditions. Another fun little hill. They said there was another line. I guess it was over to the left. I never saw it. Like, I never saw anybody pointing to it. It just went up straight up the hill. But yeah, like I was saying, I ran the whole latter half of the race, the latter 2/3 of the race with no rear brake, which having the mud kind of build up into the predictable flowy ruts really helped being able to predictably have something to slam into when I was not going to be able to stop. I've got the same complaints I always have. Like for this section, I cut out a bunch of this, but I was behind this guy for a long time, and there was no real reason for it other than the trail was a little narrow, and I couldn't really, I wasn't yelling. I was not really pushing him as hard as I could have been to have him get out of the way. He finally hears me and slides over. I just, fell into that old habit I had where it was just get behind somebody and kind of pace them. And it's the same thing where if I was by myself, I got into that same kind of, I'm just going to flow this pace that's comfortable, but I'm not killing myself. And I was saying to some friends that I need to have some kind of like recording in my helmet that's sounds like somebody just behind me, like a 4-stroke right on my ass, because my pace increases fairly significantly when I've got somebody behind me, and I tend to make less mistakes, which is weird. These tight wood sections were really good for me. I like tight pine racing, and these sections were long and not so tight that you were banging into everything, but you had to be aware of where you were going. And especially with my no rear brake situation, all the little exposed roots you see and the trees really could pose an issue if I couldn't get stopped fast enough. I only had one get off the whole time, and it was a long straight out of one of the kudzu field sections into the woods, and I had a marker that I was hitting where I could stop, start getting on the brakes, because I'd have to be gentle with how hard I was pressing my front, or else I would just wash the front out. and I came into a corner too hot, grabbed the front brake, and did exactly that. Just kind of flopped over. Didn't hit the ground really, but the bike laid over. I had to pick up and correct. This section reminded me of a Sumter Enduro or a Georgia Enduro or something like that. It's the same kind of clay mixture and pine. This stuff I like. There were no real sloppy sections. This is probably the worst that it got, where you would be in a section that was kind of squishy, but it was never really terrible. There's been way worse races where we have long sections of really crappy, like peanut butter mud. There were some ruts that got really beat in. That was one of them. And another couple where you had to, if you weren't careful, you were dragging a peg through the mud or dragging, brake pedals and stuff like that. I'm hoping I didn't totally destroy my rear master cylinder, because that's don't want to have to replace that. This section was weird. So, like I said, that was the worst section of like kind of sloppy mud, and then this area you'd think you really should get on the gas there, and I probably should have gotten on the gas harder going into this section, turn out into the motocross track, but the ground was so squishy that you would kind of accelerate and just kind of start digging a hole. So it was hard for me to get going real hard or really trust where my inputs were going, because I thought maybe you push too hard one way, you back in, bounce it around, or you grab the front brake and you just end up going over bars. This is one of those things where it's like, trust the tires and trust the ruts to really hold you up, because you can only stop so much before each turn. And so I watched a Billy Bolt's video from his Sea to Sky beach race, and you really realize, you watch those pro guys go into a corner and it's like, man, he doesn't let go of the throttle until he's in the turn. And then I go back and watch my own footage, and I know I'm not Billy Bolt, but I'm braking so much earlier than I guess I need to be, and not holding the power on long enough. I don't know how to really be conscious of that while riding, because it feels like you're doing all the right stuff, and then you go back and look, and you're like, oh man, I could have held on for another second or two, or braked just a second or two later, and that would really make up a difference after a whole race, especially being 6 laps, or I think I did 2.5 hours total ride time.
I have no rear brake.
Yeah, there's me confirming that I had no rear brake. I'm not sure what lap this is. This is either 2 or 3. If it's 2, then I just found out I had no rear brake, and if it's 3, I'm just yelling at myself about not having rear brake. I don't know what it is about the flat track stuff, or not even flat track, just like field sections or grass tracks. I'm so bad at them, and like I was saying, I don't really have anywhere to practice doing it, but I just have no trust in my ability to not over input, over gas or over brake and just blow a corner, or I don't know, I just can't go fast enough. And I cut them all out in these videos because it's just really actually embarrassing that how slow I am in them. That bridge was ice. You start accelerating, your back end just spins. There was no traction. You just had to kind of carry your momentum across it. In the latter end of the race, I actually started using that outside line, which was a tad bit slower, but it was less slippery. That left-hand line going up the hill was much faster. I took it one time, I think it was the last lap, and really made a big difference in how fast you can make it up this hill. You see all the spider roots and everything. It was getting a little greasy, especially only having, like I said, the front brake to rely on. Like this little section here, it was just roots into a tree. I had to trust that I could slam my back tire into that tree to keep me from sliding off the track. A lot of guys talked about this little rock section, and it wasn't really anything. It was little rough, but as long as you kept your momentum and a little bit of power on, you make it through pretty easy. And it led down into a little off-camber-ish rocky section into the kudzu. And this was a nice, just same kind of pine woods tight trail that they had throughout the race. Conditions were really good. Like I said, it rained a little bit. The mud was there, but then it got kind of tacked up by the end of the race. The weather was in the 70s, so it was never really hot. It was just kind of perfect. Really good day to go out and ride. This is the last couple sections before we go back into scoring and finish out the lap. This little hill got chewed up. It was a big rut going up that hill by the last couple laps, and saw a couple guys get, bobbled in there and kind of stuck. But honestly, it was never really that bad for the couple of decent hills they had in this race. Nobody really got jammed up too bad where there were real big bottlenecks in them. It seems like every Mid-East race I go to, if there's any semblance of a hill at all, there's 40 people sitting on it just spinning or staring at it like they don't know how to go up a hill. And so it's kind of nice to see a race where there's actually some mildly challenging or mildly intimidating hills where people aren't staring at them from the bottom trying to figure out how they're getting their bike up to the top of it. Of the races I've done for the Harescramble series this year, this was my favorite course. The mix of terrain and the weather conditions and the big groupings of either fast trail or really, really tight trail made it for an interesting race. It was never really dull or felt like you were doing the same thing over and over and over again. So it was, enjoyable the whole time. I'm not sure if I'll be at the next NCHSA race. We'll see when the schedule happens. If I do, I'll make another video. I'm going to get back into making these pretty regularly. I got out of it because I got kind of bored with it and wasn't really sure what I was doing with racing this year. And since the COVID thing has happened, since everybody's talking about it, it's kind of put a damper on how much I can really do. So I'll get a couple more out, and hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Peace.